Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I am Adrian Fort, and we are here for another poetry discussion. Pardon me. A poetry discussion which will appear in two playlists here on the channel. Number one, obviously, being the poetry discussion playlist, now approaching 400 videos. But number two, this is the 36th entry, going poem by poem through Sylvia Plath. The poem in question today is known as Rhyme, and it reads as such. I've got a stubborn goose whose guts honeycombed with golden eggs, yet won't lay one. She, addled in her goose wit, struts the barnyard like those taloned hags who ogle men, and crimp their wrinkles in a grin, jangling their great money bags while I eat grits. She fattens on the finest grain. Now as I hone my knife, she begs pardon, and that's so humbly done. I'd turn this keen steel on myself before profit by rogue's tongue. Act but how those feathers shine. Exit from a smoking slit her ruby dregs. I think it's always dangerous to try to diagnose what a poem is about. I don't really believe in the idea of a poem being specifically a short story, being specifically a novel, being specifically one thing. That's basically propaganda, right? Propaganda is something written, painted, filmed, etc., with the sole purpose of a certain message being communicated. But art is that which is communicated, and the interpretation, the onus for the interpretation, lies upon the reader, not the writer. Still, I think that sometimes it helps us get closer to the poem. It helps us get closer to something tangible for ourselves if we can sort of maybe get a little bit of purchase on what is going on for the artist. And you have to, I think, when reading this poem, you have to get a sneaking suspicion, right? So our speaker here, not necessarily gendered, right? But the subject is. The subject, that golden goose, is female. We think, simply because of standard roles in the farm process, probably the speaker's a male. We have the butcher's knife. I think it's almost impossible to read this poem, and maybe I'm wrong. By all means, let me know if I'm wrong. But I think it's almost impossible to read this poem and not get some inkling of an idea that the speaker here is actually Ted Hughes. And I don't mean that he wrote it. I mean that Sylvia Plath is writing the speaker here to be Ted Hughes. Therefore, this goose with the golden egg, would we be tempted to imagine that as Sylvia Plath at least? What's the golden egg? Well, that might have something to do with the title. Rhyme. Now, not all poetry rhymes for sure, but where do you find rhyme? You find rhyme in verse. Verse is poetry, poetry is verse. This leads me, sort of, to the assumption that this poem is about Sylvia Plath being hassled to do that thing. You know, that thing. You can write, do that thing. That thing that you do. You can write. Lay that golden egg. Lay that golden egg. Does it spin that funky record, white boy? Lay that egg, write that poem. That is what you should do. I am sitting here waiting for you to feed on that grain, waiting for you to enrich me with that golden egg. And there is maybe a pervasive sense of resentment to this poem. I think that's maybe safe to say. And so, possibly, the use of diagnosing this, insofar as I have attempted, is to put us in the mindset of the writer. I think that there are a great many people who are ruined, absolutely ruined, by the hopes of their parents. Oftentimes, when this happens, it is not parents, but a parent. Someone who is pressured. You are the special one. You are the one that is supposed to get us out of here. You are the one that has all those tools, whatever those tools might be. You are the one. You are the one to lay that golden egg. You are the one that is supposed to go to college and get a career and help your poor old mom and dad. You are the one who is supposed to throw that football, go to college, find yourself as a first-round draft pick. And that can absolutely ruin someone. The golden child phenomenon. Play that funky music, white boy. I don't think it's anything about spinning a record. But that phenomenon, the golden child phenomenon, why would it be so stressful? Why would it be so strenuous? Because it is people without the tools depending on someone that they only believe has the tools. And there is perhaps no weight more crushing than hope. Knowing that someone is doing all that they can for you. You see this all the time. You see this all the time in maybe middle class, lower class families. A child is believed to be the one. And resources, maybe resources that the family does not have, are poured into that child. What happens when that child shows up and does not have those tools? What happens when this golden goose sits down to write the rhyme and cannot find the poem? Wow, that could be crushing. Sylvia Plath's poetry is sort of broadly known as confessionalist poetry. And this type of writing has made its way in to other forms, other formats. I haven't read the Bell Jar. I'm assuming that there is some confessionalist aspect to the Bell Jar, but in more modern types of writing, this is known as dangerous writing. Tom Spanbauer has the school of dangerous writing. He taught Chuck Palahniuk of Fight Club fame how to write. And the big thing with dangerous writing is that you put stuff on the page that would be super embarrassing. And it's called dangerous because the whole time you're writing it down, you're thinking, people are going to judge me for this. I'm going to be judged for these things that I'm putting on the page. I'm going to be judged for the way that I think. I'm going to be judged for the things that I'm willing to write. It will be held against me. I will be judged harshly. Maybe today that's true. But the real answer is people who are reading this sit back and think, oh my God, I'm so glad someone else said it. Of course, the obvious thing was this type of emotion, but no one wanted to say it. Of course, the obvious thing was fear of XYZ. Of course, the obvious thing was sexual arousal. Of course, the obvious thing was wanting to run away and hide. Of course, the obvious thing was some sort of depressive outcome. But no one wanted to say it. The dangerous aspect of that, therefore, becomes null and void, becomes a moot point. Sylvia Plath's writing of confessionalism is more personal, perhaps, than that, but I think it has the same outcome. So for me, Sylvia Plath is oftentimes extremely dense. I can't crack into those poems. So I have to find some purchase somewhere else, some little crevice of the poem whereby I might draw something out. Surely, the language itself comes easier to other people than it does to me, but I don't think that the meaning behind any of these poems does. I think that's kind of one of the things. So the risk with confessional poetry would be, insofar as there must be one, the risk would be that you're not really confessing anything. The risk would be that you are coming up with a false confession, right? What that would mean is that no one is able to identify with it. That's why this interpretation is, in my opinion, one of the things, at least, going on with this poem, this golden child syndrome. How quickly the thing with the golden egg turns into the thing that I'm sharpening my knife for. And how quickly, again, so here, let me get to it. What am I doing? Making examples without showing the text. I've got a stubborn goose whose guts honeycombed with golden eggs. How quickly this turns to, oh, I'm honing my knife. I am honing my knife. I've got that knife. And we know that it's not just an empty threat because we have the observation that that goose is fattening. But again, how quickly the promise of that beautiful thing turns the speaker to I'd turn this keen steel on myself before profit by such a rogue's act. If the confession in question is a false confession and no one connects, these are just words on a page. But if that connection rings true in some form, then the poetry can live forever. And that is exactly what is happening here with Sylvia Plath. Sylvia Plath, I was not prepared. You know, I've been talking about literature online now for nearly a decade, almost a decade now. The people who hold Sylvia Plath dear hold Sylvia Plath dear. And that would not be possible if those were false confessions. It would not be something that happened. That is all I have for this poetry discussion. If you like or appreciate what I do on the channel, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. And if you find yourself here by chance but not design, there is poetry on the channel every Monday. There are multiple videos per week, and I hope to have you back for the next one.